And we are featuring today Rena. And Rena, pronounce your last name so that I don't completely botch it.
Yudkowsky. Yudkowsky.
Yudkowsky. Okay, great. We got Rena Yudkowsky today, who's gonna share with us some insights and tips and 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 answer the question, what did I come to the fridge for? But Rena, before we dive into this discussion, give us a little bit about your background and how you got into this field.
Sure. Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining and for having me on. So I'm a geriatric social worker and a memory coach. So how did I get into that field? It actually goes back a long time. When I was 16, I didn't want to go to summer camp. So I went to the nursing home to volunteer. And what I found there was that I loved it. I loved being around older people. I felt like I could bring quality of life to them so easily just by talking to them and singing and dancing and just having fun. The people in the nursing homes were so lonely and depressed because people didn't go visit nursing homes very much. So that sparked my interest in working with seniors and gerontology. And then I just pursued that into a career and a profession and went for a master's in social work that specialized in gerontology and it was actually called clinical aging at the time. So I had my master's in social work, and I loved working with older people. It was like my dream, my passion. And then I was the head of an Alzheimer's unit in an assisted living facility in Maryland. So I was working a lot with people with, memory impairments. And I was fascinated by memory. How does memory work? And then what happens when it doesn't work? And why doesn't it work? And like, what's going on in the brain? It's just fascinating. Memory is a fascinating topic. And as we age, I think we all feel it. It was a catalyst for me to do the research and put together what would be helpful for seniors to know about memory and aging. And then I moved to Israel. I got married. I moved to Israel, where I continue doing all sorts of interesting things in the field, including pursuing the memory coaching stuff. And then just a couple of years ago, put it online so that people all over the world can be part, and I can help people really all over the world.
Great. And I will make sure to share your the link to your website and your contact information with everyone, giving a little preview here for folks. But now you're still in Israel, correct?
I am. I've been in Israel for almost 24 years. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Now,
Yeah.
what time is it there right now?
So it's 6:07. We
Oh
are
man,
we
wow.
we are
Okay,
6 hours ahead of the East Coast because you guys changed
that's
your
great.
clock.
Well, this is your background sounds interesting, and I'm really curious to hear what you have to share with the audience today. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duck behind the curtain and let you kind of take the controls, and then, but feel free to take a pause from time to time, and if any, relevant questions come in, I'll definitely let you know. And folks, just a reminder, best part about these discussions is they're live and interactive. So you can use chat, you can use Q&A. If you got questions related to anything Rena is saying, just throw it in there. We love your feedback and your input. So all right. So
Fantastic.
take it away.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen so that you'll be able to follow along. It's just one thing that's going to have everything on there that you'll need to remember this. 1 second. Okay. Uh, okay. You can see the screen now, right, Steve?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So this talk is called What Did I Come to the Fridge For? And the reason I named it that is because people would always ask me, why is this happening to me? Why am I walking into the room and I'm forgetting, quote unquote, what I'm coming for? Like, what's going on? And I really did a lot of research on this to figure out what is this phenomenon and why is everyone complaining about it as we get older? And here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is that when that happens to you, it's actually not your memory. It's focus and attention. Because what happens? I have the thought, I need the milk from the fridge. I walk, let's say, from the living room to the fridge, open the fridge, and I can't remember what I came for. Why? Because where'd my brain go in that time that it took me to walk to my fridge? Here are my thoughts. It probably went, oh, I have to send that email. Oh, I forgot to tell my husband that. Oh, what am I making for supper? So when I get to the fridge, I'm no longer focused on what I'm cutting for. My brain went in a lot of other directions. So it's not a memory issue. It's focus and attention, but we blame our memory. We say it's our memory, but really it's not. So I'm going to tell you right now the really easy, simple, funny solution to this problem, which is when I have the thought, I need the milk from the fridge, I'm just going to keep saying milk, 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 milk till I get to the fridge. It sounds ridiculous, but what it does is it keeps you focused on the task. So what we're going to focus on today is focus. We're going to talk about 4 ways to improve your focus, and that will improve your memory. So the next time you have a senior moment or a memory lapse and you're wondering what's wrong with me, I want you to ask yourself, did I even pay attention to this in the first place? Okay. So the next time you forget something, ask yourself, did I even pay attention to this in the first place? And if the answer is no, then guess what? There's nothing wrong with your memory. It's about paying attention and focusing on what you're doing. And today's techniques are going to be about that. And you're going to see your memory is going to improve. Now, if you are more worried, if something more serious is going on and you are worried about your memory after everything I say today, then please be in touch with me or be in touch with a geriatric doctor and get a memory assessment. There's so many things that could be causing memory issues other than the things we're going to talk about today. So you don't have to assume that you have dementia. There are many, many other things that could cause memory loss. But today we're going to talk about how to improve focus to improve memory. And I have an acronym for you. So actually, all you have to remember is this acronym, TEAS, T-E-A-S. Think of like herbal teas that you like to drink. TEAS, T-E-A-S. If you can remember TEAS, you're going to remember today's lesson, okay? So T stands for task, one task at a time. You are going to stop multitasking. We are all so used to doing so many things at once, right? We're all used to having like 10 windows open on our computer and clicking back and forth. Or you're used to talking on the phone while baking a cake. Or you're used to talking while driving. We need to stop doing this. We are distracting ourselves. We are taking our brain and we're tripping it up by multitasking. They found in the workplace, when they did research in the workplace about multitasking, they found that people that multitask actually made double the amounts of mistakes, double. And when people talk on the cell phone while driving, it is the equivalent of driving while drunk. And cell phone talkers are half a second slower to step on the brakes. Half a second's a big difference when it comes to if you're about to crash into someone. So the question is, what should we do? What should we do? If we can't talk on the phone while driving, which in many places is actually illegal, although in many places you can talk on speaker. You can't hold the phone, but you can talk on speaker. The problem is that's still a virtual conversation. You're still imagining who you're talking to. So your eyes are here and your hands are on the wheel. But where's your brain? Your brain's not right here. Your brain is virtual, imagining who you're talking to, which is the answer to the question, which I know you're thinking, because I get this question every time I do this. What's the difference between talking on a cell phone and talking to the passenger who's sitting right next to me while I'm driving? And what I just said is the answer. When you're on the cell phone, even if you're on speaker, it's a virtual conversation. You're imagining who you're speaking to. Your brain is not right here. But when there's someone sitting next to me and I'm driving, I'm present. So I can talk to someone while driving until I'm not sure where I should go. Let's say I get to, if I'm driving somewhere where I don't know my way around, and I'm not sure whether to make a right or a left. Then I might say to the person sitting next to me, wait, could you be quiet for 1 second so I could focus on where I'm going, right? Because the minute I need my full brain or my full concentration, I can no longer be listening to someone, even if they're sitting next to me. So there are certain tasks that take more cognition and more concentration than others. For example, people say washing dishes. I can listen to a class or a podcast while washing dishes. You can, because washing dishes does not take all your cognition. But here's the thing. What if an hour later I ask you for the details or a quote of that podcast? Are you going to remember it? Maybe yes, maybe not, because you were still doing something else. And so your attention was still taken away from or distracted from listening to that podcast. But people love to multitask, right? We love to multitask. We feel so productive and so efficient. The problem is that we aren't. In fact, we're less efficient and less productive. And especially as we get older, you might have noticed, it gets more difficult to pay attention to more than one thing at a time when we get older. So the first thing I tell people when they complain about memory is stop multitasking, because it trips up your brain and it makes you less creative. It makes you feel stressed, and it temporarily lowers your IQ by 15 points. So multitasking temporarily lowers your IQ by 15 points. So we want to do one task at a time. T stands for task, one task at a time. We want to stop the multitasking. Okay, E stands for environment. You want to build a conducive environment to learning and remembering. So if you're reading an article that you really want to remember the details, and there's music playing in the background, and the kids are screaming, and the doorbell's ringing, and the dog is barking, how could you possibly concentrate on what you're doing? How could you learn? How could you read and take in everything you're trying to take in? You can't. And therefore, your environment is not conducive to remembering. The same thing with your lighting. If your lighting is very poor, your vision is not going to take in the information the way you want to. So you're not going to remember what you're reading. So your lighting affects how you take in information and remember. Obviously, distractions and sounds. What about clutter? Like if I have a desk in front of me. My desk is a mess and it's all cluttered. I can't think straight. I can't focus on what I'm trying to do. I need to clear my clutter in order to focus. That's part of my environment. And our environment needs to be conducive to focusing and remembering. So it's your distractions, sounds, vision, lighting, clutter. And another thing, if you go to a talk or a class or a presentation, sit up front so that you're not distracted by all the people in front of you and by all the noise around you. If you want to remember what was said at that class or workshop, sit in the front. It gives you a better chance of remembering, because your environment is going to be conducive or not conducive to you remembering, depending on how it's set up. So it's very important for our environment to be conducive to focusing and remembering. And then there's sometimes where we can't control our environment, right? We can't control it. So in that case, you have to just make sure not to have very high expectations of remembering. If you're in an environment where you can't see, you can't hear, and there's a lot of distractions, you better lower your expectation of what you're going to remember, because our environments really affect us and our learning and our remembering. So if you are doing tasks that require all your focus and concentration, make sure you're in an environment that's conducive to that. Okay, I just want to go back to tasks for 1 second, because I know some of you might be thinking that there are times in life where we can't multitask, right? Whether you're a caregiver taking care of a loved one, whether you're taking care of grandchildren, there are times in life where we have to, or we feel like we have to multitask. So I tell people, fine, I get that. But as much as possible and whenever possible, you're going to try not to multitask. But especially as a caregiver, and I imagine we have some caregivers on here, there are times where you feel pulled in different directions. And that's the time to figure out what is most important for right now. What's the task that has to happen right now? And what can I let go of and do at another time? So it's about prioritizing as well. And when my kids were little and they would all try to talk to me at once, I would say to them, I can't hear you all at once. I need to hear one person at a time. My ears can't hear so many kids talking to me at once, because I knew that I would not remember what they were saying to me if they were all talking to me at once. So yes, there are times in life where you have to multitask, but try to be careful about it. Try to only do it when you have to. And then afterwards, you sort of are going to need some time to breathe when you have that feeling of being pulled in a lot of directions and multitasking. Okay. A is automatically, but it's don't do things automatically, because what happens when we do things automatically? Where's our brain? I'm putting my keys down. I'm throwing my keys down, but my brain is in Honolulu, right? So I need to align my brain and my body. I need to bring my brain and my body in the same place, because oftentimes we daydream or we're thinking about other things. They say we have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Wow, that's a lot of thoughts going through my head. If I do things automatically while I'm thinking about something else, I'm not going to remember that I did it, because it didn't even get into, it's not even a memory issue. It didn't get encoded properly in my brain. So therefore, I'm not going to be able to recall it because it's not even encoded properly, because I did it automatically, right? So the only time I tell people that you could do something automatically is if you have a set place for something. So for example, when I walk in my house, I always, always, always put the keys on that hook behind the door or on that hook in the kitchen. If you always put the keys in the same place, then you're never going to lose your keys. So in that case, you could do it automatically. But other than that, automatically means without thought, without focus, and without mindfulness. And when you do things without thought, focus, or mindfulness, you can't remember where you put things. Can't remember where your keys, your phone, or your glasses are, because you threw them down somewhere and your brain was thinking a lot of other thoughts at that moment. So what do we need to do? The solution to this is to be more mindful, to be present, to make our brains focused on one task at a time and what I'm doing right now. So when I put my keys down, I'm going to take 2 seconds, and my intention is going to be to remember where I put my keys down. So it's the intention and giving it attention. And how do I do that? I make the memory. I make the memory by focusing on what I'm doing. So it looks like this. I don't just drop my keys down while my head is thinking about somewhere else, something else. I actually stop, and when I put my keys down now, I'm going to make a mental image. We can use mental images to help us remember. Our mind thinks in pictures, and mental images are very strong. Our power of visualization is very strong in our brains, and we can harness that power to help us remember. So now when I put my keys down, I'm going to picture or imagine 100 red roses popping out of my keys. Wow, that is a great, 100 red roses are popping out of my keys on my coffee table. So in an hour or 2 hours, I say, what did I do with my keys? Oh, and immediately this image of 100 red roses popping out of my keys on the coffee table is going to pop up in my mind. Now, it doesn't have to be 100 red roses. It could be a genie popping out of your keys. It could be a bomb blowing up on your coffee table, whatever works for you. But some image that's going to immediately help you recall where you put it. And it really takes 2 or 3 seconds to make this image. And you can do it over and over to help you remember where you put your keys, your phone, your wallet, your credit card, your glasses, all the things that you are always losing. Which, by the way, there's an interesting statistic. I want you to put in the chat what you think the answer to this is. What is the average? How many minutes a day does the average person spend looking for lost items? Put it in the chat. How many minutes a day does the average person spend looking for lost items? I'm going to see what you guys think, and then I'll tell you the answer. Okay, 20, 30, 15, 15, 60, 30, 10, 40, 30, 60, 10, 20, 15, 30. Good. Okay. The answer is 16 minutes a day. The average person spends 16 minutes a day looking for lost items. What a waste of time. If a simple technique like what we're talking about now can help you save 16 minutes a day, wouldn't you do that? All you have to do is when you put your key, phone, glasses down, you have this beautiful picture in your mind pop up. That's one thing you can do. Now we're going to go on to the S. The S is the next thing that you can do that will absolutely help with this. The S is use all of your senses. Senses are seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. We have 5 senses, okay? Your senses stimulate your brain. If you use one sense to make a memory, you have about a 10% likelihood of remembering it a week later. But if you use 4 senses, you have a 97% chance of remembering it. So we can go from 10% chance to 97% chance by doing what? Using 4 senses, or using as many senses as apply to the example that we'll talk about. So senses is very powerful. When we engage our senses, it encodes the memory well in our brains that it's there for us to recall later. And here's how we do it. It's so fun, and this really works. I have taught this dozens and dozens of times all over the world on webinars, and people come back to me and say it really, really helps and it really works. Okay, so the first example is, how are we going to use our senses to remember that we locked our door? Right? I'm sure this has happened to, we have a lot of people on here today. We have over 100 people. I know this has happened to some of you. You lock your door and then you walk away, and it could be a minute later, it could be 10 minutes later, it could be 20 minutes later. You go, did I lock my door? I can't remember if I locked my door. And then you panic and you're anxious because, did I lock my door? Oh no, maybe my door is not locked. I think this has happened to a lot of us. This is a symptom, not of memory loss. This is a symptom of not paying attention to what you're doing. Focus and attention. So there is a very simple way, very simple solution. It's practical, simple, and you're going to do it and it's going to work. The next time you lock your door, you are going to use your senses. So watch my hand. I'm looking at my hand when I turn the key. I'm going to feel the key in my hand. Is it hot or cold? I'm looking at the key. I'm feeling the key. When I turn the key in the door, I watch my hand. I feel my hand and watch my hand turn it. When I close the door, I hear the slam of the door. I hear the click of the lock. And I say out loud, I am now locking my door, or I have now locked my door. So you walk away, and 10 minutes later, an hour later, you go, did I lock my door? Yep. I remember feeling the cold key in my hand. I remember hearing the click of the door, of the lock. And I remember hearing myself say out loud, I have now locked the door. It's simple. It takes 2 seconds, but it takes all your attention for those 2 seconds, that the memory is encoded properly of what you're doing. You're not on the phone. What happens if you're on the phone when you're locking your door? You are not going to remember that you locked your door, because where's your brain? It's not watching what your hand's doing. There's a disconnect between your brain and your hand, and that's the problem. I taught this once, and a lady told me that every night she would go upstairs to go to sleep, and every night she would come back down the steps because she couldn't remember if she locked her door, and the self-doubt was paralyzing her. I just can't stand it. Every night I have to come back down and check my door. I taught her this technique, and then she got back to me. She told me afterwards, she says, that's it, done. No more self-doubt, no more anxiety. I go upstairs, I know I locked my door. I don't have to go back down to check it. It sounds like a little nuance, but for her, it was a quality of life issue that she didn't have to keep going back down her steps every night to check her door. And for her, it was a quality of life thing. It was simple, but it worked. Okay, the next one, that you turned off the stove. This is something that can be very dangerous, right? If you can't remember whether you turned off the stove or not, it could be very dangerous. So again, when I turn off my stove, I'm going to look at my hand when I turn off the stove. I'm going to move the pot, doing an action. It's kinesthetic. You're moving the pot to another flame. You are going to remember moving the pot. You remember touching the pot. You're going to smell, right? Let's say you're cooking rice. When you turn it off, it's going to take a whiff and say, okay, it's going to stop simmering now. It's going to stop smelling as much because I'm turning it off. And you say out loud, I have now turned off the stove. So you're watching your hand turn off the stove. You're watching the fire go out. You're moving the pot. And you're saying out loud, I have now turned off the stove. So later, when you get nervous, oh my gosh, did I turn off the flame? You will have remembered moving the pot. You will have remembered watching your hand turn off the stove. You will remember smelling the smell of cooking, stop, that it's going to stop simmering. And you will have remembered saying out loud, I have now turned off the stove. You can't be on the phone and doing this. Okay, you cannot be multitasking. And if you are multitasking and you can't remember whether you put salt or pepper or sugar in whatever you're baking, that's the reason. Okay, stop multitasking. Do one thing at a time. Okay, now people often ask me with the example of turning off the stove, how do I remember to do it, right? There's remembering that you did it, and there's remembering to do it. I have to remember to turn off the stove. How do I remember to do it? And the answer to that is pretty simple. It's a timer. It's either an oven timer, a kitchen timer, or what I tell people is don't leave the kitchen. If you have something cooking and you walk out of your kitchen, that's it. You are going to forget, because where's your mind? Your brain is going on to the next task. It's distracted. So therefore, stay in the kitchen. You have a much better chance of remembering to turn off the stove if you stay in the kitchen. Now, I know sometimes that's hard because sometimes it takes a long time for something to cook. So you have to set a timer of some sort. Now, some people say they set a timer and then they don't remember what the timer is for. So then you need a timer and a written note. If you're going to use a timer, well, let's say, put it in your phone. In your phone, when the timer goes off, you have to say, turn off the rice. Okay, one second, let me take a drink. Okay, I'm going to do these two examples and then I'm going to take questions. So feel free to put the questions in the chat. I want to give you two more examples that come up a lot. How to remember that you took your medicine, right? Oftentimes people forget whether they took their medicines and they're nervous. So a lot of people use the pill boxes. So you can always go back to your pill box and check whether you took it. But let's say you want to remember without having to go back to your pill box. So again, when you take your medicine, your mind is where? Right here. My mind is looking, I'm using my senses. I'm looking at the pills. I'm looking at the colors of them. I might even say to myself, what are these for? Okay, that's for blood pressure. That's for cholesterol. That's for, sleeping, whatever. So you're giving it just a little attention. So you're looking at them. And then when you swallow them, most of them don't have a taste. Maybe some do, but most don't. But when that water goes down your throat, if you're focused on the feeling, you will remember the feeling, right? As opposed to talking on the phone or reading a newspaper while you're doing it. So you got to be focused on, look at the medicines. What are they for? When you swallow it, feel it going down your throat. And then you say out loud, I have now taken my Monday morning meds, my Tuesday evening meds, whatever. That will come back to you when you, later when you have the thought, oh, I can't remember if I took my meds. Oh yeah, I remember feeling it go down my throat. I remember looking at the pills. I saw the pink one and the white one and the yellow one. Sometimes they're just all white, depends on the colors. So it's a very simple exercise of using your senses that helps you encode it properly and then be able to recall it. And the fourth example, which we touched on before, is where you put things. So we said we can use the mental images, but you can also use your senses. So when I put my keys down, I'm watching, my eyes are looking at my hand. I'm watching drop the keys. And then I hear the keys, they make a noise when they hit the table or whatever you're putting them on. They make a noise. I'm hearing a noise. I'm not on my phone. And I'm saying out loud, I have now put the keys on the coffee table. I've now put the keys on the countertop, whatever. So you're watching your hand drop the keys. It's not a disconnect between your hand and your brain anymore. My brain is watching my hand drop the keys. I hear the clink of the keys on the coffee table and I say out loud, I have now put the keys on the coffee table. And you can do this with anything that you lose all the time or can't remember where you put them. So the T's. T is one task at a time. E is environment. A is don't do things automatically. And S is senses. Use all of your senses to encode the memory properly. What I want to do now is I didn't talk so much about smell. So let me talk for a minute about smell and then I'll take questions. I see some questions coming up in the chat. Smell is very powerful. It doesn't apply to all the examples, obviously, but smell evokes memory. So if I say baby powder to you, you might have a memory or an association with baby powder. Now, sometimes it's a positive association and sometimes it's a negative association. But the point is that the place in the brain where smell is very close to our memory center. So there's a strong association between smell and memory. So for example, here's an interesting stat. If you are tested on the details of a movie that you watched with the smell of popcorn wafting in the air, you will remember 10 to 50% more of the details of that movie. Isn't that cool? Because smell is very associative and to memory. So use smell in wherever you can, whatever examples you can, use it to help you remember what you're doing. And when this was driven home for me when I had COVID 2 years ago, and I couldn't smell or taste anything, right? And my cousins came, they'd already had COVID. They came and they were doing a barbecue in my garden. So I saw the smoke, I knew they were doing a barbecue and I could not smell the smell of barbecue. It was driving me crazy. It was so depressing to me. Like I lost so much joy of eating. I lost all the joy of eating because I couldn't smell or taste my food. And I realized how powerful those senses are and how much we use those senses to remember what we ate, to focus on what we're eating, to enjoy what we're eating. And it's such a different experience when you can't smell or taste. I mean, I found it actually very depressing. And I was like trying everything to get my smell and taste back because I couldn't stand it. So thank God my smell and taste came back after a few days, but I know people who it was months that it didn't come back. And it was like, for me, it was so confusing. It was such a confusing feeling not to be able to smell and taste my food. Okay. I do have more to say about this, but I'm going to stop because I want to take questions. I see questions coming into the chat. Let's see. Steve, do you want me to take the questions or you want to read out the ones that are relevant?
Well, here, yeah, so, okay, all right. Virginia asks, how do I remember to set out pills for my husband?
Okay, good. Okay, so that's where routine comes in. You want to have a built-in routine. So if you make him breakfast and he takes, let's say he takes pills in the morning, it should go with the breakfast. So that you make breakfast and you put the pills out. And I would put them in a very obvious place so that you see it and he sees it. And then when he takes it, you know he took it. So if he's taking it with breakfast, put it right next to his bowl of cereal or whatever he's eating. So it's part of the routine. Every day you do this. Now, if it's something that you don't do every day, and it's, let's say it's something he has to take once a week, for example, which is harder to remember, then I would set myself a timer or write it on my calendar. I would use external cues, like write, the auditory and written cues to help me remember. But if it's something that happens every day, then build it into your routine that when you make him breakfast, you put out the pills.
Great, great. Okay, if it's very difficult for a person not to multitask or concentrate on one thing, could that mean possible ADD or ADHD?
It could. I am not going to diagnose anyone with anything here, but I will say that for those of us that have ADD, it is very difficult not to multitask. Yes, correct. We have to work really hard to slow it down and really focus on one thing. Our brains work really fast and my neurons go all over the place. And it affects memory, right? Because if I'm trying to do this and this and this and this, I'm going to forget something. So for those that are ADD, we need to slow it down. We need to use a lot of reminders, whether it's written or auditory reminders to help us remember. But it's not a memory problem. That's the point that I want to make. It's not a memory issue. So yes, ADD, it's hard to focus on one thing at a time. So this is especially important for those with ADD. Like for example, if you have a lot of windows open and you switch back and forth, you're wasting like fractions of seconds by doing that. And that's what happens when we try to do too many things at once. We're wasting time switching between tasks and it trips up our brain. It's much more efficient, which is counterintuitive, to do one thing at a time and finish it, and then do the next thing at a time and finish it. But depending on your age and how ADD you are as to what you're going to be able to do about it. But I do recommend slowing it down and really trying to do one task at a time, as difficult as it is. You have to train yourself, but it will help you feel less stressed. So there are a lot. I actually did a Facebook Live in my Facebook group with an ADD coach, and it was fascinating. You can go into my Facebook group and watch that. We did it a couple months ago.
Excellent. I'll copy a link to your Facebook group here.
Yeah.
Ruth asks, for people with low vision or other sensory losses, what do you recommend?
It's even more important to use your senses. It's even more important because, as we said, our senses is how we take in information. So if you're having trouble hearing, get a hearing aid, because the better you can hear, the better you can process information, the better you're going to remember. There is a connection between hearing loss and dementia. People that can't hear can't process information properly. So a lot of times people are very against, or they're against getting hearing aids, or they're embarrassed, or they don't want it, or it's too hard. I really encourage people to do whatever they can to augment their senses. So if a hearing aid is going to help, it's going to help your memory ultimately. So, and vision, let's say a low vision, do whatever you can, whether it's glasses, whether it's cataract surgery, whether it's magnifying glasses, whether it's making your computer, the letters on your computer bigger. That's an easy one, right? You want to maximize your senses, because like we said, your senses stimulate your brain and you need your senses to remember. So if you're having vision loss or hearing loss, you want to do everything possible, all the tricks, hacks, and gimmicks out there you can to see and hear well, because it is very related to how you remember.
Great. Okay, let's see. Kelly says, I know several people who have created rhyming memory phrases before leaving the house or work each day. Does anyone remember the old phrase, spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch? And it's often a case of developing good habits. When I cook or bake with many ingredients, all ingredients go on the counter, and once used, I move them to another counter. You could also do this by placing to the side. Great tips there,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
And I think it's also worth, on this topic especially, for those of us that use this phrase, oh, I'm having a senior moment or something like that, it's recognize that that's an ageist statement. It's like young people misplace and forget things. It has nothing to do with age. And if you've been diagnosed with memory impairment, this is a condition. It's not, has nothing to do with your age. And when you make a statement like senior moment, you're actually, it's ageist. And we don't realize it. It seems like it's an acceptable phrase, but it really shouldn't be. Let's see. Rebecca asks, do devices like Alexa help with reminders, or does it make us not use our memory as much?
Okay, good question. So people love Alexa. I know lots of seniors that use it. Someone told me they use it for their shopping list, and it's synced to their phone. So their husband can say, oh, remember to buy sugar. And then on their phone, it shows up on their shopping list. Technology is fantastic. We want to make sure to use it as a help and not a crutch, right? We don't want to outsource our brains to technology. So, yes, you can use technology to help you. And you want to make sure that your brain works and remembers what's needed and what's important. And that's where the techniques come in. So all the techniques that I teach, whether it's names, numbers, lists of items, are to help you internal, like your brain. And then there's the external stuff that can also help us. So yes and yes, meaning yes, we can use technology, but yes, we want to make sure not to outsource our brain to technology. There's also a phrase called digital dementia, where we rely on our technology so much that we can't even like, have you noticed that people can't even add anymore because everyone just pulls out their phone and does adds 3 + 3 on their phone? It's like, wait, what happened to simple math that we learned 50 years ago or 60 years ago? It's like, so we don't want to outsource our brains. But yes, absolutely. There's so much good technology out there that we can use to help us.
Let's see. Roberta has an interesting insight and question. And she's sort of saying, if you do the sensory reminders every day, won't that become automatic and therefore lose its effectiveness? Is there sort of, do you want to kind of play around with some of these reminders?
Okay, thank you for asking that. I was waiting for that question. I get that question every single time I do this. So thank you for asking. The answer is that our memory has an amazing system built in, which is that there's a memory process. And after each step, there's like, imagine a little garbage can that gets rid of whatever we don't need anymore. So I don't need to remember whether I took my medicine 6 days ago. That is filtered out of my memory. I need to remember whether I took it today, maybe even yesterday. So whatever we need is hopefully when it's working properly. I'm not talking about dementia because that's a disease process. But in general, our memories work with a little garbage can after every step of the memory process, which means that whatever's not needed anymore is gone, filtered out. So I really don't need to remember whether I took my medicine, several days ago, but today I can go back in my mind and I remember standing there taking my medicine today, because that's still fresh. That's still in my memory because I encoded it properly by remembering that, by being mindful when I took my medicine. So the answer to your question is that your memory filters out what it doesn't need and keeps what it does need, so that the fresh stuff will be there and the old stuff is filtered out when
I
it works.
love it. Good. Linda asks, how can I recall people's names? It's embarrassing.
Yes. Okay. Names is the number one reason that brings people to a memory course. And in my memory courses, I actually I think I spend 3 hours of the 14 session memory course on names because we practice it out because this is what people want. It is embarrassing and there are great, easy, simple techniques. I'm going to give you one little piece now just so you have something, but really I'm doing a whole master class on this soon. So I'll just give you one piece. One piece is when you meet someone and they say their name, repeat it back to them a few times. So it sounds like this. You meet me and I say, hi, my name is Rena Yudkowsky. You say, hi, Rena, how are you? Say, Rena, where are you from? I'll tell you I'm from Israel. Rena, how long have you been living in Israel? You just said my name 3 times. Now, I just did it for effect to do it quickly. But over the course of the conversation, repeat the name back to them. Why does that work? Because of the S, the senses. You're hearing yourself say it out loud. The auditory cue is very, very helpful. And at the end of the conversation, you say, bye, Reno, so nice to meet you. So you said my name a couple times. That alone will help you with some of the names. Then there's a whole technique of association and putting it together with the face and the name. So I do that in my master class. But just try repeating the name back to them a few times.
And I'm glad you mentioned your master class. So here's your website. Now, if somebody wanted, whoops. Okay, if somebody wanted to sign up for the master class, where do they click on the site?
Okay, so that's a good question. So the masterclass is something we're doing live. So it's actually not on there right this second because I am in the process of deciding which dates I'm offering it next.
Okay.
But if you email me or get on my email list, which you can do from the website, you can just get on my email list and then you'll know when the next time I offer it.
Okay.
So if you scroll down a little bit, it said there's a place that says no, that's a brain training WhatsApp group. If you scroll down a little more,
okay.
I have a couple different programs going on. Let's see, does it say join here? Get my freebie. See where it says get my freebie?
Okay.
Is my memory loss normal? So let's say you're wondering, is my memory loss normal or not? If you subscribe to my email list, you will get a checklist of whether you know how to know whether your memory loss is normal. You will also get a couple free videos from me about that. And then you will, I'm really hoping to do this, the You Name It Masterclass in 3 weeks. So if you're on my email list, you will get to know about that. Okay. Yeah, so that is the best way to find out because I taught it a few times and I'm in the process of launching it again. So okay, just get on my email list.
And real easy to do. I just signed up for it myself. So there we go. Excellent. Okay, let's get back to some of these questions here. And then do you also do like one-on-one coaching with people?
I do. The one-on-one coaching is more appropriate for people that have some type of diagnosis because then it's really customized and I can do a memory assessment and then I could do exercises that are very, very customized to what they need. Some of my other programs are groups, but I do the one-on-one when it's people that have special, either diagnoses or really need just one-on-one.
Okay, great. Susan has a great tip. She says, if you need to take an evening med, what about keeping a note on your pillow to take it? That's a great idea. Yeah. I also find that, putting that pill there on your nightstand versus in the kitchen or what have you might trigger a reminder. Let's see. Cola, okay, she says this is such an affirmation on a recent conclusion. The real issue of forgetting is focus and attention. I frequently have 3 tasks in my mind to do ahead of the one that I'm trying to accomplish. Then I remember 2 out of 3 and forget one of them. Sometimes I take a moment to write them all down. Is there a better way to handle this?
Yeah. So the technique that I teach for lists. So it's basically a list, right? There's 3 tasks you want to remember. It's like 3 items you want to buy at the store. So it's the technique to remember names. And in short, I'll just tell you what I would do, but obviously I would have to teach this to you and practice it. But what I would do is I would make 3 images of those tasks and I would connect the 3 images together so that when I want to remember those 3 tasks, it's connected into one image in my mind. So that's how I use visualizations. I would make three images for the three tasks and then make them interplay or interconnect. That is a creative way to use visualization to help you remember tasks. Again, you
Excellent.
have to practice it, but that's what I would
Okay.
do.
Virginia says, I use a journal to record things as they happen so I can go back
Yeah.
when I have to look something up.
Excellent.
It's a
Excellent.
great
Yeah.
thing. Okay, I put the Facebook page back in there again for Crystal. Okay, and I think, wow, this is great. I feel like we've got through most of the questions and comments here. Now, Rena, is there you do these discussions all the time? Are there some questions that weren't asked that you often get from your audience that you'd like to make sure that we address?
Yeah. So some people, okay, the thing that people say is they're worried that they're getting dementia. What to do about that fear of getting dementia? So whether you're a caregiver or whether you're just have certain memory losses that you're worried about, either what we talked about, the examples we talked about today, or other things going on, and the fear is sort of there, and especially if you have a parent or grandparent that had dementia. So I just want to talk about that fear for a second because it's real and tangible. Um, that's where these techniques are very empowering. So you might have a script in your mind saying, oh no, I can't remember her name again. Am I getting dementia? And you worry, right? And you have anxiety about it. That's where my mission is to empower seniors so they believe in their memories. So when you have the tools and techniques to call on, you don't have to worry whether you're getting dementia because you have something else. You have a tool or technique to help you remember what you went, what that task was or what you went to the fridge for, or how to remember someone's name or a list of items. And it's about using your brain properly. It's about really use it or lose it, right? We say use it or lose it. It's exercising your brain so it's sharp. And when you are exercising the brain and using techniques, it's empowering because it's like you're doing something. It's just like when you want to lose weight and you're exercising. It feels good because you know you're doing something to help your body, right? So the same thing with your brain. You know you're doing something to help stay sharper longer. We'll even say prevent dementia. There are doctors that are saying that, yes, we can prevent dementia. 20 years ago, we didn't talk like that. But today, there are a lot of researchers and neurologists saying that we can do things to prevent dementia. There's a lot of research out there that's talking about the power of lifestyle factors versus genetics. But that's like a whole nother talk. But I'm just saying that the people that do have a gene and are worried about it, we can try to beat those fears by empowering ourselves with tools.
Great. Um, let's see. Beverly says, my problem is remembering names, not just persons I meet, but organization names, place names, things like that.
Yeah, so it's about encoding it properly in the first place. Like think of a file. If you put the paper in the wrong folder, you're not gonna be able to find it, right? So if when someone tells us their name or name of an organization and it's not put in the right file in our brains, we can't recall it. So it's about learning to encode the information properly. And we talked a little bit about it today. By giving it attention and intention helps it get encoded properly. By using your senses, you're encoding it properly. So if someone says their name or a name of an organization, if you take the time, just a few seconds to really focus on it, maybe even write it down, make an association. What does it mean to you? It's going to be encoded properly in your brain so you could recall it. So it's really about encoding it properly.
Excellent. Man, this has been a really great discussion today. I am really charged up that we connected, Rena. And
Thank
you
you.
know what I love about it is that we talk a lot about communicating with our loved ones with dementia. We talk a lot about, getting diagnosed and things of that nature. But you really offered us some practical tips that can be applied through our entire lifespan. These are great tips to give to our teenagers who
Yes.
are constantly forgetting their keys and things of that nature. And they're just great reminders as well to how we can function and be more present. Like what I loved about your reminder on names is that's how you become more present in a conversation is saying somebody's name, and it engages them more in you, and you remember your name. It's a great way for us to live. And
Yes,
it's as you had mentioned, because of the way that we interact with these things here, we've gotten out of some of these habits.
yes, yes. That's
Um,
where the mindfulness comes in. There's really more to say about it. I did it quickly, but there's more to say about it.
oh no, this was fantastic. Well, okay, folks, remember this is recorded. I'll have it up at proaging.com shortly. I'll make sure to have all Arena's information. Jump on her website, join her email and her Facebook and all that, and you can learn about the master classes and all the different offerings she's got. And then, of course, there's all of us on this discussion today, but we've all got friends that we need to share this with or connect with Rena. I mean, what a great gift that somebody could give is, hey, here's my master. I bought this master class for you to give you some solutions for remembering. Um, so, all right.
Thank
Well,
you. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, thanks. And Rena, enjoy the wedding. It's 6 o'clock and you're heading to a wedding now, right?
Yep, it's almost 7. It's almost 7. We're heading out to
Okay,
a wedding.
excellent. Well, have a great evening, and everybody,
Thank
thanks
you.
for your contributions. This has been a wonderful discussion.